Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechtas Avodah Zarah daf Lamed Aleph. We're going to begin on the bottom of Lamed Beis, the second line from the bottom. Amar Rav Asim Rav Yochim Mishum Rav Yehuda ben Beseira Shloisha Yenoisein. There's three different categories when it comes to wine. First of all, Yain Nesach. If we're dealing with wine, as Rashi says, it's already been used as an actual libation poured for Avodah Zarah, then Asur B'Hana. At that point, it's already considered forbidden for getting any benefit. Umatama Tuma Chamura B'Kazayas. Says Rashi, that's Matama Maseh V'Oyel Kames. It has the same din as an actual dead body. Iskish because we actually make this connection. So that's how chomer it is when it comes to the dinim of yain nesach. It has the same status as a mace, which is avi avos tuma, which will make someone into an avatuma. As we continue to Lamed Aleph, stam yenam is asur b'hana. However, when it comes to stam yenam, you're not allowed to get benefit from it. However, matama tumas mashkin brevius. The din is that it's not matama adam kalim, which means it's an avatoma to be matama arishon, but rather has the status of arishon to be matama mashkin oichin mashkin, and it's matama only at a revius, but not at a kazayis. Fine. It says Rashi, mishum gzeres yain nesach. The reason why stam yenim is also because of the iser of a gzeira of when it comes to actual yain nesach. Okay. So with that, let's go immediately to question TA13, which is also TB14. So first of all, yain nesach is matama tuma chamura b'kazayas. Stam yenam matama tumas mashkin brevius. It's only one answer. Not sure why it says only one answer. I wrote on TV14, Yain Nesach Asur B'Hana, they both are. Matama Tuma Chamura, Other B'Kalim, Avostam Yenim, Rak Matama Oichnu Mashkin. But again, that's each one is only one answer. You need both. Okay, let's continue. So the Gemara then says, Hamafgid Yenoi Eitzel V'Chachavim. Let's say you have a Jewish person's wine, and he gives it to an akum to wash. So asur b'shtia. At that point, you're no longer allowed to drink it. Umutter b'hana, but it is mutter b'hana. Let's look at this Rashi before. That it says matama tumas mashkin, matama tumas oichanu mashkin, kataris mashkin, tumas sheretz, shena matama adam kalim, avol oichanu mashkin. It has the din of a sheretz that has like a status like a rishon l'toma, can be matama only oichan mashkin, which is a sheni. So that's the previous Rashi. So again, if you gave your wine to an akum, you cannot get hana from it. However, you're not allowed to drink it, asur b'shtia rather, umutar b'hana. But actually, you're allowed to get hana from it. But tanan hamafkid peiros v'etzel v'chachavim. If you gave your fruit to an akum, harihin ki peiros v'chachavim. Has the same status of their fruit, so if that's the case, the question is that maybe they exchanged it because we're chayshed lachalufe, they may exchange yours with another. So why don't we have that same concern? That if you gave them wine, so maybe it's not your wine. Maybe they exchanged it with other wine, which is usur. So why would we allow it to be a person to get hana from it? Where it says kigoyin shiach lekeren zavis. If you put in a corner, says Rashi Masel Mafteach Loasa Chaisim, you put something with a seal, you locked in like a closet, you have a key, so therefore he doesn't have the ability to exchange it. So Yihachi, if it's true that it's sealed up, so why can't he drink? Why is it? Can I understand why it's mutar b'hana? So then why is it asur b'shtia? Daha Rabbi Yochanan lifroid. Says Rashi went to this makaim of Bar Kapara, So Omer Kum Yesh Mishnas Bar Kapara. Tanale Rab Tanchum Demin Paroid. He did know a statement that was Hamafkid Yenu Etzel V'Chachavim Mutar B'Shtia. It says beferish that you are allowed to drink. Kari Leha Makam Shipol Ha'etz Sham Yu. So Sham Yu Saladaitach, says Rashi. What does that mean? The place where the Talmud Chacham lives, Sham Yu, says Rashi, Shu Atzmo Yimsa Sham. You should also be found there. What do you mean? He died. So what does that mean? Ela Sham Yu Peroisa. There are his fruits. Now, as you will find the fruits. Says Rashi, Yimsu Perosa Eitz Shenishru Mimenu. Afkan Hisra Chadibri Chachamim Yishoel Es B'nei Ir. You should ask the people in that city, and you'll be able to learn from his meisim. It doesn't mean that you can just go there and you can learn from him because he died. But since the people that were there knew of his actions, so therefore you could learn from, even after he died, what his custom was. Anyway, again, it's a kasha, because in this case it says it's mutar b'shtia, and elsewhere we just said it was asr b'shtia. So I'm saying kasha rabban. It's a machlok. So the sanya echel kech ve'echad ha'saycher bias b'chatzedai shel v'chachavim. Someone who purchased or rented a house in the courtyard of a Kachavim, umalehu yayin, and you put wine there, umafteach, and you locked it up, o chaysim biyad Yisrael, and either that or there was a key, so at least there was one seal. So Rabbi Lezer matir chamim oiser, and this means when Rabbi Lezer matir means you can even drink from it. So therefore, this is the machlokas. Amar Rav Chia b'Rei Rav Chia bar Nechemeni Amar Rav Chisda Amar Rav Yamar some say was Amar Rav Chisda Amar Zir Yamar well some say was Amar Rav Chisda Amar Li Abba bar Chama Hachi Yamar Ziri Halach Rabbi Lezer. Halach Ataka is like the Shitas Rabbi Lezer, that it is not only mutar b'hana, but even one seal or one key b'keren zavis is also mutar b'shtia. Question 9. Mafki Denu Eitzach Akom Him Neser B'hana. So as we just said, Lamaskana Beloy Chaysim is also Im Chaysim Oy Masol Mafteach Mutar, which is what we just said. Okay. Amar Rabbi Lazar Hakoyel Mishtamir B'Chaysim Echad. Every item, just as long as there's one seal, then that's it. Then it's perfectly fine. And one seal is enough. You don't need a Chaysim like a double seal. Chutz bin Hayayin. Wine is the one thing that we're extra strict with. Shein mishtamer b'chaysim echad. That one seal will not protect it. In other words, they'll break the seal and they may cause problems. You have Yochanan Rafil yayin mishtamer b'chaysim echad v'lo pligi hak Rabbi Lezer hak Rabbanan. It's not really machlokas. Rabbi Lezer is the one who's mekel, and he allows a chaysim echad. The chachamim don't allow chaysim echad. You need two seals. Everything requires a double seal. That even a double seal is not enough. No, even wine is a double seal is sufficient for Devaya Kurabanan, but they all hold like the Shita Rabbanan. Marsavar Kipli Rabbanan Lehad Rabbi Lezer b'chaysim echad. Maybe they only argue with one seal. Double seal is okay. Even a double seal is asr. So what exactly does that mean? Practically a double seal. So Merabam, so the Gemara now goes into a few examples. If you have a gana, a puma de chavisa, sharika, let's say you have this bowl that you turned over on the wine barrel, sharika, and it's covered with some type of lime or cement, v'chasme, and it's sealed, so he's not going to break these seals. But if it's not done exactly as I said, then it's not enough. You have to actually have it again sealed up. Okay. Or another case is diluka umihidok. If let's say you turned it around, and it's tightened very well. So in that case, havichais masay chaisa. However, loy mihidok, if it's not very well tightened, well, havichais masay chaisim, then that would not be sufficient. It has to have a strong seal. Says Rashi, nichnas b'daichek, was put in very hard. Pietzal, by the basket, levoras hachavias, to absorb and go into the barrel. Okay. So Rashi says, v'loy tarach leziyufe kulihai. He's not going to go, because it's such an intricate thing that you did, it's not likely that the akum is going to exchange. He'll change it over. Or, noid be diskia chasimas piv, omate havichais masay chaisim. If you have this type of wine flask on a pouch and you turn it upside down, that's another double seal. Piv malo havichaisim masay chaisim. But if it's just faced up, not. However, v'ikayif pume lagav it's Zarah b'chasim havi chaisim masay chaisim. If it was knotted, it's like it was sealed again, and therefore, because it's like two knots, that's a knot in a knot. Says Rashi, noidishal or mo yayin, a flask of leather which is filled with water, v'kashay, it's tied up. Umunach masay diskishal or, it's put into another thing of wine, and you tie it up that way. Says Rashi, v'ikaya pume shel noid lagav at Zarah v'chaisim kein shikarshin noidish lonol, just like we tie up our flasks. Sholiach shikarshin ma'ison, after you tie it up, machnisin piha noid kshu karsha b'soicha v'oid karsha ma'ison pamacheres. So you tie it a second time, so that already is considered to be a chais masay chais. Tanubam. Rishayin originally hoyomer miyayin shel Ein Kushi, when it came to, this is a place where the Kutim lived, so the wine that was in that place was Aser, was considered to be Aser. Ibnei Biras Sarika, says Rashi, Oiv de Chachavim Heim, because they were Oiv Chachavim, the Smuchin Ein Kush, and these people lived near this location, and therefore were concerned over their wine because it was considered to be yain, at least yain stam yainam. Michel Barakta, which is a city of Kutim, Aser, Ninekvar Parshoy, because of the village of Parshoy, which were filled with Ovi Chachavim. Michel Zigador, also Ninekvar Shalim. So again, we were concerned because there was this other place, Zigador, which had Kutim in it, because near it was a village of Akum. Later we said, you know what? If the barrel is open, it's problematic because they're not as they don't care about the wine as much, and therefore it could have been contaminated. But if it's closed and sealed, they're going to be makbid, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. That's why it's a mutter. So mikara my savar l'soich my savar. Mikara savar en kusi makbid al magav v'chachavim. Lo shabbasuchas lo shnab stumois. That the kusi, the fact that he's in close proximity to the akum, he's not makbid on the akum touching. So therefore, because of that, it's always aser. V'soich savar kilo kapid absuchais. A stumas mikbad kapid. That the only time the akum is that the kusi is not makbid if it's an open barrel, but a closed one, hitaka is makbid. V'stuma is mutara. He says that true that if they are sealed, of that of a kusi in close proximity to an akum, that is mutter. Remenu for the Gemara, I'll show you that may not necessarily be the case as we continue to Lamed Aleph Amud Beis. It says like this: Hashaleh chavya shel yayin biad kusi. Let's say a person gives a barrel of wine to the hand of a kusi, v'shel tzir, v'shel morius. So this is like fish fats, fish brines, biyado chachavim. So im makar chayismoi, if you could recognize your seal, with sasmo and it's closed up, mutter. Imav aser. If you're not, then it's aser. Now even if it's a closed barrel, so it's all totally on being makir. But what if it's not? You're not makir, but why would it be aser? Says Rashi. So what's the problem with these like fish brines? The dummy hayayin yikarim mishal tzir. It's expensive miu. Chashin and dilma machlefle basir shel dogim tameim. The problem is that they may have changed it with non-kosher fish. That's the reason why we're concerned. That's why it's comparable to wine. So apparently, we see even if it's closed, it's also. So Amir Rav Zera Kasha, kan be'ir, kan b'derech. It depends where we're talking. If we're in the city, says Rashi, kopit kusi. The kusi, it's going to be mutter because he's makbid. The savar hashta nago gachavim b'yeni v'loy zavni mine, because that if people find out I'm trying to sell this wine. So if I'm in the city trying to sell this wine, and people find out that Akum is touching the wine, it's going to devalue the wine. People's not going to get it at all. So therefore, they're going to be makbid if it's closed. However, b'derech, they're not as concerned, and therefore it's also even if it's closed. Maskeb Rabbi Yomi midi hanach de'ir loy b'derech asu, says Rashi. V'licha shema nagmehen bevoyim b'derech. So, okay, fine, they're in the city now, but why aren't we concerned that while they're on the road they may have touched it? So why are we lenient be'ir? El Omer Rabbi Yirmiyah Bein Hagisai Shaninu. We're talking about a time during the wine pressing season. Kivan de Koyama Avche Mirsos, because the roads are so full of people during this time, and therefore the Kusi is afraid. And therefore the time that Stumos is Mutarais is Benegitois, because there's so many people around that they're going to make sure that everything's done properly. Omer hashda ichazili mafduli. So he says, now that if I see, then it will be a loss to me. In other words, he's concerned. He doesn't want people potentially to see this, and therefore he's going to be more makbid during that time. Idmar. I understand why wine is a problem, but what's the whole issue with beer? So Rami Barchamo Eimer Rabbi Yitzchak Mishum Chasno. So Nachman Eimer Mishum Gilui. So one opinion is because of marriage. It says Shlo Yargel Lasois Mishtoi Seitzel Chacham. We don't want you to hang out with these Avodah Chachamim. If you're hanging out with them in their house, you may end up falling in love with their daughter, and that's a problem. Or because they're not makbid when it comes to having the beer open, and because of that, a snake may put poison into it. So Gili Demai. Are we talking about while the beer is still in its vats? So Anan Nami Megalinan, we also keep it open, because a snake doesn't drink beer. Ve'ela the chavisa, it's maybe it's in the barrel. So again, a naminami magalinan, we don't care. We, even if it's in a vat or if it's in a barrel, we still keep it open. The issue, as Rashi says, that we keep the water, which is the filtering water process, the water to use to make the beer. So the whole issue is the water. So beer isn't just beer. It didn't just start off with beer. It was water, and then it turned into beer. So the question is, during that process, while it was still water, so maybe that water became contaminated by a snake's venom. El miata, so then yashin tishtri. Then aged beer should be allowed, because after all, once it's aged, the venom cannot just be staying there anymore. Yom Rab Yashin Mutter. If it's old beer, it should be allowed. Ein Manichel Yashin Hichmetz Mutter. Ein Manichel Hachmetz. So also, when it becomes vinegary, it's mutter. If it's in this vat, then it becomes vinegary. It's mutter because we know that a snake could not have drank from it. It says Rashi, "Ilu shasabo nachash o yemnichul hachmetz." Then it wouldn't have become vinegary. Okay, so gezerah yashanat chadash. Even though it's true, old beer, by definition, cannot possibly have poisonous venom in it. we don't want to take any chances. So again, venom can allow it to get old. So if it's old, it isn't poisonous, or it won't ferment. So that's the whole point, is that it couldn't have been venom in there, because if it's venom, then it by definition cannot become old beer. Rav Papa, who was an expert in beer making, mafikin le la'ababa de chasanus v'shasi. He would bring out the beer out of the store, and he would drink. See if there's a Rashi on this. No. Rav Achoy Maisule Lebesa, he would bring it to his house, Vishasni would drink. Mishum Chasnus, the whole issue is because of Chasnus. In other words, they would allow beer to be drunk from an akum, provided that it wasn't like in their house. If it was brought outside or brought to their own house, then there's not an issue of Chasnus. Rav Achayavid Harchaka Yiserta, he even was more strict. Rabbi Shmuel bar Bisna Ikla with Margoin. So he went to this place, Yisrael Chashudim Hoyu. These are where they're suspected Yisraelim. In this town, they were not very particular. Isolate Chamer, they brought him wine, and again, this is a place where they were suspect of things. They were not so strict. So he didn't drink. Isolate Shich of the game beer. He didn't drink. Now Bishul Machamra Mishum Simsa. I understand why he didn't drink the wine, because of suspicion, because maybe there's an issue of wine, of it being yain nesach. So shichra mishum mai, mishum shimsa de shimsa. It's a suspicion of a suspicion. Says Rashi that gezerah shichra atu chamra, because they're very much suspect of the wine, so therefore he's also suspect about their beer. So as a gezerah, Amarav hayshichra de armo. This beer that came from this place, shari. Achia beri lo nishti mine, but he didn't drink from it. So manavshach. Ishari, if it's allowed, lo kol yama shari, then everyone should drink. He also call me aser. So like, what's the whole din? Like, you're saying, oh, it's kosher, but I'm not going to eat it. Like, make up your mind. El Rav Savar Misham Gilui. He felt the whole issue is because of the issue of the snake putting venom in it. But Azul Merura de Kashusa, but if you put some hops in there, the Kolule Zihare, it kind of burns out the venom from it. And when that happens, Vidalki Midalki Leitve, it ends up basically being okay. However, he just didn't want to drink from it. Says Rashi, so technically it wasn't because like a chumrah, but als gilui, it's dangerous. But if you put hops into it, so that somehow counters the venom, and therefore you can eat it, but he didn't drink from the beer anyway. Amar Shmuel, kol hashratzim yesh lehen eretz. Every sheretz, there is some type of venom. Shel nachash, when it comes to a snake's venom, mamus, it can kill. Shel shratzim eno mamus. It's not that they don't have, but they're not. It's not deadly. Amar Shmuel achia barav bar arya tava emoach. Come and tell us milsam el yosa to have yamarav avuch. Some beautiful thing that he said. So hachim avuch. This is what he said. Hachi armoi zukani dehavi shasu giloi v'lo mesu. So Rashi here. So if this person is bloated and he drinks it, so then he will not die. Okay. I did achli shkotzim v'ramosim chavul gufayu. And when a person would consume shkotzim ramosim, your body gets heated up. Okay. Amr Rav Yosef. Hi. As we continue the Lam Beis Amud Aleph. Hi Chalwa de Shichra. Says so there's like vinegary piece of parts of the beer. The Arma Aser. The Ma'arbi Bay Hayr de Yain Nesach, because they put the remnants of Yain Nesach in it. Amr Rav Ashi Ma'oitzer Shari. However, if it's in the storehouse, it's allowed. Kivan the Ma'arbi Bay Masud Sari. That because since it's all mixed up over there, it would end up getting sour, and therefore that's the reason why we say in that case, if it's in the oitzer, it is mutter. Adka.